We'll have a recommendation for the president. We're going to give him a couple of options of how to move forward to advance the important policy towards Iran.
The president has, as he said, made a decision on this, and he'll make that announcement at the appropriate time. The main focus that he has been a comprehensive strategy on how to deal with Iran. That is what he wanted his team to put in place, and I think you will see that announced in short order, and that will be a comprehensive strategy with a unified team behind him supporting that effort.
And we heard from the president this hour in the cabinet room meeting with military officials and his defense secretary that you will hear something on Iran very soon. This as multiple reports here in Washington are suggesting that the White House, and the president specifically, will decertify this deal, including the Washington Post with the headline, Trump plans to declare that Iran nuclear deal is not in the national interests. White House pushing back on the specifics, saying nothing's set in stone. But clearly something is happening soon. The deadline is October 15th. Let's bring in our panel. Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Catherine Lucy, White House reporter for the Associated Press. And Michael Crowley, senior foreign affairs correspondent for Politico. It seems like it's heading in a way, Michael, as you talk to the experts around town, that it will be something short of pulling all the way out of the Iran nuclear deal and essentially handing it to Congress to say it's your deal to deal with sanctions or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So an important thing for people to understand is that Donald Trump has to, any president, whoever had won the election, would have to certify every 90 days whether Iran is complying with the deal. And if Trump says that they are not, that doesn't mean we're at, excuse me, it doesn't mean we're out of the deal or that the deal is off. It starts a clock for Congress, and Congress has 60 days to decide as a result of that presidential action. Are you going to reimpose the sanctions that we lifted when Barack Obama did this deal in July of 2015? Was a trade. We'll take off sanctions if you, the Iranians, will put strict limits on your nuclear program. If Congress does that, then the deal is basically blown up. America has, in effect, withdrawn from the deal, and there are a lot of consequences. The most extreme version you hear from some Obama officials is this starts us down the path to war. But what looks like what's going to happen is Trump is going to decertify it, get to sort of vent about it. He doesn't like the deal, but I think he's been convinced by his more sort of establishment mainstream advisors like Mattis, McMaster, Tillerson, that pulling out of it now brings consequences he doesn't want to deal with. So he gets to decertify, but then Congress doesn't follow through, and it's a compromise between the politics and the policy.
And maybe during that time they try to push for some kind of renegotiation on some elements of the Iran deal. I guess that's the hope. That's
certainly possible. I mean, here's what we know. The president hates this deal. He's been vocal about his dislike for it. And what we're hearing is that there is, as Michael was saying, discussion privately about how to sort of split the difference, give him the ability to say he's taking action while not necessarily fully exiting. And that then does turn to Congress. It does probably involve negotiation. We're not fully clear yet how it's all going to play out, but he does get to then, if he does it this way, which they're saying is not definite, he gets to make a statement about this.
Judge, there's firm pushback against the NBC reporting on Secretary Tillerson yesterday by the White House, by the president, but there's not denying that there is a split in the administration on this issue. Here's a listen to Defense Secretary Mattis and others.
Do you believe it's in our national security interest at the present time to remain in the JCPOA? That's a yes or no question.
Yes, Senator, I do. The president has to consider more broadly things that rightly fall under his portfolio of looking out for the American people in areas that go beyond the specific letters of the JCPOA. In that regard, I support the rigorous review that he has got going on right now.
What I testified to last week was that Iran is not in material breach of the agreement, and I do believe the agreement to date has delayed the development of a nuclear capability by Iran.
Well, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, has kind of tended to have a tone that was different.
I do not remember witnessing the senior most members of an administration disagreeing so publicly. Now, the president likes to go it alone. He wants to feed the base. He wants to do, as president, what he said he was going to do in very vociferous terms when he was a candidate. But you have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and the National Security Advisor, three of the four of them generals or former generals, saying Iran is doing the right thing. It'll be catastrophic for us diplomatically if you pull out of this. Don't go it alone. And you have all the other countries. There's 7 countries in this deal. It's not just Iran and us. All the others have said Iran is materially complying with the agreement. So I think there's going to be consequences, even if he strikes the deal that Michael talked about. But I do think he's going to do what Michael said he was going to do.
Which is why it could be consistent. You could have rhetoric like that from Madison Tillerson saying Iran is in compliance, but Trump will decertify but not have Congress pass the sanctions, so we don't pull out of the deal. We actually preserve the deal, even though for the base, Trump is able to kind of send a message saying, I still hate this thing.
But how about this? How tough is that vote?
Generals, what message they send then to the countries, to the allies?
How tough is that vote for Republicans who said this Iran deal was horrible too?
Very, very tough. And at some point, the president has to sign some legislation, either pro-sanctions or against sanctions. So at some point, he's going to have to bite the bullet.
A lot of Democrats didn't like the deal, too, but they're in a tough spot.